तो ये हो गया ना, important than it is simple. In the
Yes.
preceding investigation, na?
Yeah.
In the preceding investigation, we have treated the total product as the final result ready for use of a working day of 12 hours. We can, however, follow this total product through all the stages of its production. And in this way, we shall arrive at the same result as before. If we represent the partial products given off at the different stages as functionally different parts of the final or total product. तो इसमें वो अभी क्या कर रहा है, ये देखो, see this system is important. What is doing, हम लोग, what we generally do is we only, it is one way traffic. We go from the intended thing to the objective or the conclusion that we want to draw. We do not follow the opposite path of taking the conclusion as the given and go to the thing from which we have started. So these two things, this is very, very peculiar to Marx. He will always do this. He will do it in either ways. One will say, why is he wasting time? It is हमको समझा. अभी now you will, when we were in school, we did think that all that the teacher was thinking, we did understand. But however, it was not so, because we did not detail what she was teaching, and we did not detail it to the final level. Just as 8th में भी वही सब्जेक्ट है, 10th में भी वही है, 12वीं में भी सब्जेक्ट वही है, टॉपिक्स भी वही है, और ग्रेजुएशन में भी वही है, और पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन में भी वही सब्जेक्ट मैटर, पर डिटेल का फर्क पड़ता है. इन एनी इवेंट, in any eventuality, they do not go both ways. They go from certain observations to a final conclusion. They do not do the opposite thing. That what they have concluded, they do not split it into its parts to come at the observation itself. Now, this is very, very important as far as social sciences are concerned. You have to do it either ways, and that is what he is now going to do. Okay? So, in the preceding investigation, we treated the total product as the final result ready for use. So, we took the value or the quantity of labor time contained in the final product and split it into the respective parts. That is surplus value, variable capital, and constant capital. This is what we done. Now, he is going to go the other way around. We can, however, follow this total product through all the stages of its production. And in this way, we shall arrive at the same result as before. If we represent the partial products given off at the different stages as functionally different parts of the final or total product. So, what he is trying to say that constant capital, variable capital, and surplus value are functionally different. No, this is very important. Their function in the production process, in the capitalist mode of production, they perform different functions. So now he might go according way by function wise. Function, what are the various functions that are there? So I think the next paragraph is quite lengthy. I will mute my microphone. Either of you read.
मैं पढ़ रहा हूँ.
हाँ.
In the preceding investigation, मेरा म्यूट ना, मेरा तो ऑन है.
हाँ, विष्णु का म्यूट करो.
मेरा म्यूट है क्या?
नहीं, अभी म्यूट हुआ, अभी चालू है.
ठीक है ना, मेरा सुनाई दे रहा है.
हाँ.
Okay. In the preceding investigation, we have treated the total product. क्या हुआ?
सर कुछ गड़बड़
मैं ऑडिबल नहीं हो रहा हूँ.
है.
अब हो गया, आप शुरू.
हाँ, अभी तुम, हाँ, विष्णु म्यूट करो.
In the preceding investigation,
विष्णु म्यूट
we
करो.
have treated the total product as the final result, ready for use of working day of 12 hours. We can, however, follow this total product through all the stages of its production, and in this way, we shall arrive at the same result as before. If we represent the partial products given up at the different stages as functionally different parts of the final or total product.
हाँ. आगे पढ़ता हूँ. The spinner produces in 12. हाँ. The spinner produces in 12 hours 20 pounds of yarn, or in 1 hour 1 2/3 pounds. Consequently, he produces in 8 hours 13 2/3 pounds, or a partial product equal in value to all the cotton that is spun in a whole day. In like manner, the partial product of the next period of 1 hour and 36 minutes is 2/3 pounds of yarn. This represents the value of the instruments of labor that are consumed in 12 hours. In the following hour and 12 minutes, the spinner produces 2 pounds of yarn worth 3 shillings, a value equal to the whole value he creates in his 6 hours necessary labor. Finally, in the last hour and 12 minutes, he produces another 2 pounds of yarn, whose value is equal to the surplus value created by his surplus labor during half a day. This method of calculation serves the English manufacturer for everyday use. It shows, he will say, that in the first 8 hours or 2/3 of the working day, he gets back the value of his cotton, and so on for the remaining hours. It is also a perfectly correct method, being in fact the first method given above, with this difference that instead of being applied to space in which the different parts of the completed product lie side by side, it deals with time in which those parts are successively produced. But it can also be accompanied by very barbarian notions, more especially in the heads of those who are as much interested practically in the process of making value beget value as they are in misunderstanding and process theoretically. Such people may get the notion into their heads that our spinner, for example, produces or replaces in the first 8 hours of his working day the value of the cotton. In the following hour and 36 minutes, the value of the instruments of labor worn away. In the next hour and 12 minutes, the value of the wages, and that he devotes to the production of surplus value for the manufacturer, only that well-known last hour. In this way, the poor spinner is made to perform the twofold miracle, not only of producing cotton, spindles, steam engine, coal, oil, etc., at the same time that he spins with them, but also of turning one working day into 5. For in the example we are considering, the production of the raw material and instruments of labor demands 4 working days of 12 hours each, and their conversion into yarn requires another such day. That the love of Lucer induces an easy belief in such miracles, and that sycophant doctrinaires are never wanting to prove them, is vouched for by the following incident of historical celebrity. Now, what in this paragraph there is a where the senior's last hour. That is what his proposition was, this, that the surplus labor that the laborer produces is in the last hour, that is the final 1 hour and 12 minutes. This was the concept, and this appears to be quite common sense. Here, Marx is trying to, or Marx will, in the following paragraphs, he will criticize this concept of being wrong. That is, suppose we say that that is what he will say, and how he contradicts or how he criticizes this belief of which the last hour seniors last hour is. That will be quite clear. This will be an interesting topic. You do have the way in which seniors last hour is wrong, or it is contradictory to the correct understanding of the labor process in the capitalist mode of production. He is saying that in the first how much in the first 3 days, uh, 36 minutes, हाँ हाँ इधर
First 4 days.
ऊपर
First
ऊपर
4
4
days.
days 4 days. So he
First 4
says
days.
12 hours 20 the spinner produces 12 hours 20 pounds of yarn, or in 1 hour 1/2 pounds. Consequently, he produces in 8 hours 13/2 pounds, or a partial product equal to all the cotton that is spun in a whole day. So in the first 8 hours, what the laborer is doing, he is not doing anything for the capitalist. What he is doing is to just first thing is to reproduce the labor time in the raw material. That is his job. Otherwise, what is the use? That is what he is trying to. That is the common concept. So the first 8 hours are gone for the replenishment of the dead labor contained in the raw material. The next, barabar na? This represents the value of the instruments of labor that are consumed in 12 hours. In the like manner, the partial product of the next 1 hour and 36 minutes. So for the next 1 hour and 36 minutes, he is trying to make good the value that is being lost by the instruments of labor. And the third portion, that is in the following hour and 12 minutes, the spinner produces 2 pounds of yarn worth 3 shillings, a value equal to the whole value he creates in his 6 hours necessary labor. Finally, in the last hour and 12 minutes, he produces another 2 pounds of yarn, whose value is equal to the surplus value created by his surplus labor during half a day. ठीक है, तो ये जो दोनों मामले हैं, तो देर इज कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन. When why does the contradiction arise? The contradiction basically arrives because in this case, it appears like that. In this case, he has not put constant capital is equal to 0. If he if he spins cotton and the spindle, with the help of the spindle, he is at the same time reproducing the value in the means of production. He need not have separate time for it. If he doesn't do that, cotton, the yarn that he is turning off, he will not turn in the first how many? In the first 8 hours, no, in the 12 pounds, 8 hours, 13 2/3 pounds. So in the 8 hours, he is only consuming, as a matter of fact, only consuming 3/4 of the cotton and the spindle. So he is making, in this paragraph, he is trying to convince or to prove that what senior's last hour regarding surplus value is an incorrect notion. This is what he is trying to establish in the following paragraph.
Another thing, sir. In out 8 hours, he is producing 13 to 3 2/3 pounds of cotton. If he goes to market to sell this cotton, whether the capitalist cannot get the surplus value
नहीं
out
अभी
of
अभी
this 13 2/3 pounds of cotton.
see this problem
Sir, you are mood, you are in mood, sir.
Now in this what is happening is that we are aggregating labor time as 12 hours. We cannot, it is produced, see, is the product produced as a whole or is it produced in parts? We have to take it that the product is produced as a whole. And that to produce that much, for example, you cannot suppose a carpenter is manufacturing a chair. We cannot cost it by the pieces which are being put together to make the chair. The chair is the final. Suppose somebody gives you half a meter of cloth, it is no use. So the necessity is that he should spin 20 pounds of cotton. This is absolutely necessary. So it is not that it is divided by hours. I think that is what, though mathematically it is being represented like that, or you can represent it like that. That is not what is happening. That is what, therefore, he is criticizing seniors last hour. That when you,
I think what I think, sir,
uh,
he is criticizing that capitalists gain the surplus labor only in last hour of working.
ha, the simple,
He is criticizing that thing. But whether the capitalist cannot sell the 1 pound of cotton in the market,
see, what,
No, he can sell. He has to sell, sir, and even
he
then
the
he'll get the profit profit or
surplus,
surplus. Yeah.
surplus.
uh,
That's why Marx is trying to tell that for every pound of cotton, he is for every hour of work, he is contributing for the surplus value, and
Right. In the
1 hour is 1 hour of his labor power, and also converting the raw material proportionally
one
to
right.
the
minute,
value.
Surjit, 1 minute, 1 minute.
Uh,
When
uh,
he went to the market to buy
uh,
labor power, did he
mm.
buy it in the hour or did he buy it for the day?
For
For
the
the
day.
day,
Obviously.
for the
So
day.
the
Uh,
total product of the
Sir,
day is
sir, in the previous pages, Marx was telling that everything goes on simultaneously, but we have, for simplification, have to study them in parts.
ah,
पहले ये हुआ, पहले ये. So that 6 hour of labor, which produces a surplus value, is actually going simultaneously with the product,
yes,
with
yes.
the hours that are producing the amount paid to the labor. So
नहीं,
you cannot just bifurcate, divide two day कि इतने में ये पैदा होगा, इतने में, क्योंकि इतने में स्टॉक हो जाएगा तो फिर उसका फायदा नहीं होगा ना.
ये
बस
देखो,
वो साथ के साथ.
विष्णु, विष्णु, आगे लेंथ ऑफ द वर्किंग डे के बाद में he has given in various ways, in various scenarios, where the capitalist doesn't buy labor power in the same way as for a day, not necessarily. That is what he will be explaining later. That whether it is piece wages, whether it is contract, ki you produce so much, I will pay you so much. He is not bothered about. So these are different ways in which the capitalist buys labor power. So that he is exposed to the minimum amount of risk. You can take this also. For example, in the last 20-30 years, hire and fire. So in olden days, when a worker used to enter or be appointed in a company, the worker was rest assured that all his life, as long as the company was running, he will not be removed from the company. So this was a lifelong contract. If he had to remove a worker, he had to follow a procedure. Now this has undergone change. So all these changes take place in favor of the capitalist, and the capitalist, from the point of view, he is minimizing his risks. That is why you see what is the difference between Tatas do it. Tatas take responsibility of their worker. They might be paying a bit less, but they take care of their worker. This is not this is not the case with all capitalists. They will just say if he doesn't work today properly, he will remove him tomorrow. for no rhyme or reason. So that will come afterwards. But here what he is trying to describe is that the concept of senior's last hour is
That
totally
when we read,
huh?
when we read the what Marx is going to tell
Huh?
in senior's last hour,
Huh?
we will
Huh?
see
Huh?
that one.
Hmm.
Uh,
Who is reading?
And
Vishnu.
Huh?
this the spinner produces in 12 hours 20 pounds of yarn, or in 1 hour, 1 2/3 pounds. Consequently, he produces in 8 hours 13 2/3 pounds, or a partial product equal in value to all the cotton that is spun in a day. In like manner, the partial product of the next period of 1 hour and 36 minutes is 2 2/3 pound of yarn. This represents the value of the instruments of labor that are consumed in 12 hours. In the following hours and 12 minutes, the spinner produces 2 pounds of yarn worth 3 shillings, a value equal to the whole value he creates in 6 hours necessary labor. Finally, in the last hour and 12 minutes, he produces another 2 pounds of yarn, whose value is equal to the surplus value created by his surplus labor during half a day. This method of calculation serves the English manufacturer for everyday use. It shows, he will say, that in the first 8 hours or 2/3 of the working day he gets back the value of his cotton, so on for the remaining hours. It is also a perfectly correct method, being in the fact the first method given above, with this difference, that instead of being applied to space in which the different parts of the completed product lie side by side, it deals with time in which whose parts are successively produced. But it can also be accompanied by very barbarian notions, most especially in the heads of those who are much interested practically in the process of making value beget value, and they are in misunderstanding that process theoretically. Such people may get the notion into their head how that R spinner, for example, produces or replaces in the first 8 hours of his work the value of the cotton, in the following hours and 36 minutes the value of the instrument of labor borne away, in the next hour and 12 the value of the wages, and that he devotes to the production of surplus value for the manufacturers only that well-known last hour. In this way, the poor spinner is made to perform the twofold miracles, not only of producing cotton, spindle, steam engine, coal, oil, etc. at the same time that he spins with them, but also of turning one working day into five, or in example we are considering the production of the raw material. An instrument of labor demands 4 working days of 12 hours each, and their conversion into yarn requires another such day. That the love of lucre induces an easy belief in such miracles, and that sycophant doctrinaires are never wanting to prove them, is vouched for by the following incident of historical
हाँ,
celebrity.
अभी इसमें suppose you say
Mute,
that in the
you are
first
mute, sir.
हाँ mute. Now the contradiction that he is trying to bring forth is that he is trying to say that as if in the 6 hour, in the 12 hours that he works, he is working for another 4 days if he is trying to reproduce it. This will be contradictory, because if he has to reproduce the value of the means of production, then we will have to account for the 4 days that he has to spend to reproduce the value of the means of production. That is not happening here in this last sentence. He is trying to he has brought it out very nicely. For example, such people may get the notion into their head that the cotton in the that the our spinner, for example, produces or replaces in the first hour of his working day the value of the cotton. that is the value of the cotton, say, is 3 days labor. He is reproducing 3 days labor. That is not happening. In the following hour and 30 minutes, the value of the instruments of labor worn away. In the next 12 minutes, the value of the wages, and that he devotes to the production of surplus value for the manufacturer, only that well-known last hour. In this way, this here the sentence starts and is important. In this way, the poor spinner is made to perform the twofold miracle, not only of producing cotton, spindles, steam engine, coal, oil, etc. As if he is producing that, he is not producing that. At the same time that he spins with them. That is not happening. But also of turning one working day into 5. Here is the criticism. If we take this, if we take seniors last hour, this will be the fallacy that we will be putting ourselves into. So that is what he is trying to say. ठीक है? ये बराबर है? सुरजीत, any comments?
वो ठीक है.
हाँ? हाँ. आगे बढ़े?
आगे चलिए सर.
हाँ. Section 3. Seniors last hour. One fine morning in the year 1836, Nasu W. Senior, who may be called the Bel Esprit of English economists, well known alike for his economic science and for his beautiful style, was summoned from Oxford to Manchester to learn in the latter place the political economy that he taught in the former. The manufacturers elected him as their champion, not only against the newly passed Factory Act, but against the still more menacing 10 hours agitation. With their usual practical acuteness, they had found out that the learned professor wanted a good deal of finishing. It was this discovery that caused him to write for him, that caused them to write for him. On his side, the professor has embodied the lecture he received from the Manchester manufacturers in a pamphlet entitled Letters on the Factory Act, and it affects the cotton manufacture. London, 1837. Here we find, amongst others, the following edifying passage. Now, here in this paragraph, what he is saying is that he was a learned professor in Oxford. These people, the mills were in Manchester, so they brought him here. The problem with the manufacturers was that the workers were agitating that their 12 hours working day be reduced to 10 hours. And the capitalists were arguing against it. In the sense, if they...
they must be saying, arguing कि last 2 hours में तो हमारे profit
अभी समझा नहीं.
आपका mute हो गया. Why is it happening, sir? Why your microphone gets muted?
No, I mute it. Otherwise, it creates an echo. Therefore, I am muting it consciously. No problem. So, should I read further?
Yes, sir.
Just put your thumbs up. Bas. Now, this is what who here we find amongst others the following edifying passage. Barabar.
Sir, let me finish. Let me finish this paragraph, sir.
हाँ ठीक है.
नहीं सर, ये तो पैराग्राफ खत्म ही नहीं हुआ है सर, ये तो चलता रहेगा. Here we find amongst others the following edifying passages. फिर वो कोर्ट में है पैसेज.
हाँ.
अच्छा.
Under the ठीक है, mute. Under the present law, no mill in which persons under 18 years of age are employed can be worked more than 11.5 hours a day. That is 12 hours for 5 days a week and 9 days and 9 on Saturday. So they have to work for 5 days at the rate of 11.5 hours a day. The remaining half hour is for lunch break. That is 12 hours for 5 days a week and 9 hours on Saturday. Now the following analysis will show that in a mill so worked, the whole net profit is derived from the last hour. I will suppose a manufacturer to invest 1 lakh pounds, 80,000 pounds in his mill and machinery, and 20,000 pounds in raw material and wages. The annual return of that mill, supposing the capital to be turned once a year and gross profits to be 15%, ought to be goods worth 1 lakh 15,000 pounds. Of this 1 lakh 15,000 pounds, each of the 23 half hours of work produces 5 11ths, 115th or 123rd of these 23 23rds constituting the whole 1 lakh 15,000. 20, that is to say 1 lakh pounds out of the 1 lakh 15,000 pounds simply replace the capital. 123rd or 5,000 pounds out of the 1 lakh 15,000 pounds make up for the deterioration of the mill and machinery. The remaining 2/23, that is the last two of the 23 half hours of every day, produce the net profit of 10%. If therefore prices remaining the same, the factory could be kept at work 13 hours instead of 11 and a half hours with an addition of about 2,600 pounds to the circulating capital. The net profit would be more than doubled. On the other hand, if the hours of working were reduced by 1 hour per day, prices remaining the same, the net profit would be destroyed. If they were reduced by 1 hour and a half, even the gross profit would be destroyed. So in this passage, कहाँ गए? 1 minute. पेज नंबर क्या है? No, सुरजीत.
157.
अच्छा. 1 minute. I lost the page. One minute. Abhi, in this paragraph, one will. Can you make any sense of it, Surjit? Huh?
Yes, sir.
You can make this sense. You have understood what this paragraph they want to tell us. Now the following analysis will show that in a mill so worked, the whole net profit is derived from the last hour. Now here, this is what the writer is saying. I will suppose a manufacturer to invest 1 lakh pounds, 80,000 pounds in his mill and machinery, and 20,000 pounds in raw material and wages. So here the differentiation is that instruments of labor have been separately represented, and in the normal economic fashion, raw material and wages have been clubbed. So 20,000 rupees consists of raw material and wages. The annual return of that mill, supposing the capital to be turned once a year and gross profits to be 15%, ought to be goods worth 1 lakh 15,000 pounds. So on the whole 1 lakh, 15% profit is 1 lakh 15,000 pounds. Of this 1 lakh 15,000 pounds, each of the 23 half hours of work produces 5 115th or 123rd. Of these 23 23rds constituting the whole 1 lakh 15,000, 20, that is to say 1 lakh pounds out of the 1 lakh 15,000 pounds simply replace the capital. That is, they replace the capital forwarded by the capitalist, that is 1 lakh and 1 lakh pounds. Simply replace 123rd or 5,000 pounds out of the 1 lakh 15,000 pounds make up for the deterioration of the mill and machinery. तो उसमें से ओ भी गया. अभी what he has done is deterioration of the instruments of labor have been reduced from the profit. That is what they are doing. The remaining 2/3, the 2 to 20/3, that is the last 2 and 23 half hours of every day, produce the net profit of 10%. Barabar. If therefore prices remain the same, the factory could be kept at work 13 hours instead of 11 and a half hours, with an addition of about 2,600 pounds to the circulating capital. Circulating capital means
एडवांस जो दिया है,
नहीं, रॉ मटेरियल वो लगेगा ना वो लेबर को वर्क करने के लिए, वो सर्कुलेटिंग कैपिटल में लाते हैं. द नेट प्रॉफिट वुड बी मोर देन डबल्ड. On the other hand, may suppose instead of the worker working for how much time, for 13 hours instead of 11 and a half hours. So if they work for 1.5 hour more, that will double the profit. This is what they are saying. If they work for more number of hours. Now they are arguing the opposite way. On the other hand, if the hours of working were reduced by 1 hour per day, prices remaining the same, the net profit would be destroyed. He would not get any profit. If they were reduced by 1 hour and a half, even the gross profit would be destroyed. That is, he would even not get the 2,600 pounds that otherwise he would have to spend. So this is the argument. ठीक है, ये ठीक हो लग रहा है. अभी ओके, सेकेंड टाइम रीडिंग में बराबर है. तो कौन पढ़ेगा?
मैं पढ़ रहा हूँ. Section 3, Seniors, Last Hour. One fine morning, in the year 1836, Nasu W. Senior, who may be called the bell spirit of English economists, well known alike for his economic sense and for his beautiful style, was summoned from Oxford to Manchester to learn in the latter place the political economy that he taught in the former. The manufacturers elected him as their champion not only against the newly passed Factory Act, but against the still more menacing 10-hour agitations. With their usual practical acuteness, they had found out that they learned from a professor wanted a good deal of finishing. It was this discovery that caused them to write for him. On his side, the professor has embodied the lecture he received from the Manchester manufacturer in a pamphlet entitled Letters on the Factory Act as it affects the cotton manufacturer, London, 1837. Here we find, amongst others, the following edifying passages. Under the present law, no meal in which persons under 18 years of age are employed can be worked more than 11 and a half hours a day. That is 12 hours for 5 days in the week and 9 on Saturday. Now, the following analysis will show that in a meal so worked, the whole net profit is derived from the last hour. I will suppose a manufacturer to invest $1 lakh, £1 lakh, that is 80,000 pounds in his mill and machinery, and 20,000 in raw material and wages. The annual return of that mill, supposing the capital to be turned once a year and gross profits to be 15%, ought to be good worth 115 pounds. Of this 115 pounds, each of the 23 half hours of work produce 5 115ths or 1/23rd. Of this 23 23rds, constituting the whole of 115,000 pounds, 20, that is to say, 1 lakh pound out of the 1,15,000 pounds, simply replace the capital. 1/23rd or 5,000 pounds out of the 115,000 pounds make up for the deterioration of the mill and machinery. The remaining 2/23, that is the last two of the 23 half hours of every day, produces the net profit of 10%. If therefore prices remaining the same, the factory could be kept at work 13 hours instead of 11 and a half hours, with an addition of about 2,600 pounds to the circulating capital. The net profit would be more than doubled. On the other hand, if the hours of working were reduced by 1 hour per day, price remaining the same, the net profit would be destroyed. If they were reduced by 1 hour and a half, even the gross profit would be destroyed.
ठीक
ये ये पैम्पलेट था सर जिसमें मैंने
हाँ
1 hour को बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट
हाँ
दिया लास्ट में ना था दिया फ्रॉम द लास्ट.
So should I read the subsequent paragraph?
Yes sir.
And the professor calls this an analysis. If giving credence to the outcries of the manufacturers, he believed that the workmen spent the best part of the day in the production, that is, the reproduction or replacement of the value of the buildings, machinery, cotton, coal, etc., then his analysis was superfluous. His answer would simply have been, gentlemen, if you work your mills for 10 hours instead of 11 and a half hours, then other things being equal, the daily consumption of cotton, machinery, etc. will decrease in proportion. You gain just as much as you lose. Your work people will in future spend 1 hour and a half time less in reproducing or replacing the capital than that has been advanced. If, on the other hand, he did not believe them without further inquiry, but as being an expert in such matters, deemed an analysis necessary, then he ought to, in a question that is concerned exclusively with the relations of net profit to the length of the working day, before all things to have asked the manufacturers to be careful not to lump together machinery, workshops, raw material and labor, but to be good enough to place the constant capital invested in buildings, machinery, raw material, etc. on one side of the account and the capital advanced in wages on the other side. If the professor then found that in accordance with the calculation of the manufacturers, the workman reproduced or replaced his wages in 2.5 hours, in that case, he should have continued his analysis thus. So, in this paragraph, he is trying to counter argue. He says if with your argument, you are saying that the worker is reproducing all the value, all the capital, the value of the capital that he has advanced. That is not the case. The case is that as far as constant capital is concerned, if he works less hours, then less hours of constant capital will be obviously used. This is what he is trying to present. And so as far
Simply that it will, I mean, you are not expanding that constant capital. It is it's safely there.
it will be there. So you don't account for it twice. That is what he is trying to. You don't account for it twice. एक मिनट
सर आपका म्यूट है म्यूट.
क्या? So this is the first. So now he will, in the following paragraph, that is the sum and substance of this paragraph. And why is he doing like that? That he is functionally not separating the elements that go into the production process. He is lumping all those things together as if they were one. They are not one because their function is different. As far as the raw material is used and the instruments of labor are used, they will be reduced to the extent that the working hours are reduced. That is what he is trying to say. So the reproduction of, and this is also the reason why we did not get this point previously when he put constant capital, that is means of production, to zero. Here he is telling, we are getting a clear idea why the means of production need to be put to zero. That is the important thing. Without that, you cannot argue against this senior's idea. So that is what is happening. ठीक है ये बराबर. तो कौन विष्णु पढ़ो.
आप पढ़ेंगे.
हाँ मैं पढ़ा ना. मैं पढ़ा.
आप पढ़िए सर, नेक्स्ट पर.
अच्छा नेक्स्ट पढ़ो. एक मिनट. हाँ नहीं पर ये कहाँ पैराग्राफ पढ़ा. ये अच्छा अच्छा कहाँ से पढ़ना है.
He should have continued his analysis, the like analysis 10 के बाद से आप अगर इसको पढ़ देंगे तो मैं भी एक ही बार में पढ़ दूंगा.
हाँ ठीक है ठीक है ठीक है. विदाउट इफ द प्रोफेसर देन फाउंड. नहीं 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 मैं पढ़ता हूँ. मैं विष्णु तुम पढ़ो देखते हैं.
And the professor calls this an analysis. And the professor calls this an analysis. If giving credence to the outcries of the manufacturers, he believed that the workmen spend the best part of the day in the production, that is, the reproduction or the replacement of value of their buildings, machinery, cotton, coal, and etc., then his analysis was superficial. His answer would simply have been, gentlemen, if you work your mill for 10 hours instead of 11 and half hours, then other things being equal, the daily consumption of cotton, machinery, etc. will decrease in proportion. You gain just as much as you lose. Your work people will in future spend 1 hour and a half less time in reproducing or replacing the capital that has been advanced. If, on the other hand, he did not believe them without further inquiry, but as being an expert in such matters, deemed an analysis necessary, then he ought, in a question that is concerned exclusively with the relation of net profit to the length of the working day, before all things to have asked the manufacturers to be careful not to lump together machinery, workshops, raw materials, and labor, but to be good enough to place the constant capital invested in buildings, machinery, raw material, etc. on one side of the account and the capital advanced in wages on the other side. If the professor then found that in accordance with the calculation of the manufacturer, the workman reproduced or replaced his wages in 2.5 hours, in that case, 2.5 hours, in that case, he should have continued his analysis thus.
तो हाँ अभी मैं पढ़ता हूँ. According to your figures, the workman in the last hour but one produces his wages, and in the last hour your surplus value or net profit. Now, since in equal periods he produces equal values, the produce of the last hour but one must have the same value as that of the last hour. Further, it is only while he labors that he produces any value at all, and the amount of his labor is measured by his labor time. This, you say, amounts to 11.5 hours a day. He employs one portion of these 11.5 hours in producing or replacing his wages, and the remaining portion in producing your net profit. Beyond this, he does absolutely nothing. But since on your assumption, his wages and the surplus value he yields are equal value, it is clear that he produces his wages in 5/3 hours and your net profit in the other 5/3 hours. Again, since the value of the yarn produced in 2 hours is equal to the sum of the values of his wages and of your net profit, the measure of the value of this yarn must be 11.5 working hours, of which 5/3 hours measure the value of the yarn produced in the last hour, but 1 and 5/3 the value of the yarn produced in the last hour. We now come to a ticklish point. Therefore, attention. The last working hour but one is like the first, an ordinary working hour, neither more nor less. How then can the spinner produce in an hour in the shape of yarn a value that produces 5/3 hours labor? The truth is that he performs no such miracle. The use value produced by him in 1 hour is a definite quantity of yarn. The value of this yarn is measured by 5 3/4 working hours, of which 4 3/4 were without any assistance from him, previously embodied in the means of production, in the cotton, the machinery, and so on. The remaining 1 hour alone is added by him. Therefore, since his wages are produced in 5 3/4 hour and the yarn produced in 1 hour also contains 5 3/4 hours work, there is no witchcraft in the result that the value created by his 5 3/4 hour spinning is equal to the value of the product spun in 1 hour. You are altogether on the wrong track. If you think that he loses a single moment of his working day in reproducing or replacing the values of the cotton, the machinery, and so on the contrary, it is because his labor converts the cotton and spindles into yarn, because he spins, that the values of the cotton and the spindles go over to the yarn of their own accord. This result is owing to the quality of his labor, not to its quantity. It is true, he will in 1 hour transfer to the yarn more value in the shape of cotton than he will in half an hour. But that is only because in 1 hour he spins up more cotton than in half an hour. You see then your assertion that the workman produces in the last hour but one, the value of his wages, and in the last hour your net profits amounts to no more than this, that in the yarn produced by him in 2 working hours, whether they are the 2 first or the 2 last hours of the working day, in that yarn there are incorporated 11 and a half working hours, or just a whole day's work. That is 2 hours of his work and 9.5 hours of other people's. And my assertion that in the first 3/4 hours he produces his wages and in the last 3/4 hours your net profit amounts only to this, that you pay him for the former but not for the latter. In speaking of payment of labor instead of payment of labor power, I only talk your own slang. Now, gentlemen, if you compare the working time you pay for which for with that with which you do not pay for, you will find that they are to one another as half a day is to half a day. This gives a rate of profit of 100%, and a very pretty percentage it is. Further, there is not the least doubt that if you make your hands toil for 13 hours instead of 11.5 hours, and as may be expected from you, treat the work done in the extra 1.5 hour as pure surplus value, then the later will be increased from 5 3/4 hours labor to 7 1/4 hours labor, and the rate of surplus value from 100% to 126 2/3%, so that you are altogether only sanguine in expecting that by such an addition of 1.5 hour to the working day, the rate will rise from 100% to 200% and more. In other words, that it will be more than double. On the other hand, man's heart is a wonderful thing, especially when carried in the purse. You take too pessimist a view when you fear that with a reduction of the hours of labor from 11.5 hours to 10, the whole of your net profit will go to the dogs. Not at all. All other conditions remaining the same, the surplus labor will fall from 5 3/4 hours to 4 3/4 hours, a period that still gives a very profitable rate of surplus value, namely 80 to 114 upon 23%. But this dreadful last hour, about which you have invented more stories than have the millionaires about the day of judgment, is all bosh. If it goes, it will cost neither you your net profit nor the boys and girls whom you employ their purity of mind. Whenever your last hour strikes in earnest, think of the Oxford professor. And now, gentlemen, farewell, and may we meet again in yonder better world, but not before. ये इन्वर्टेड कॉमर्स क्यों दिए?
सर वो उसके मुंह से बुलवा रहे हैं
हाँ
सीनियर
हाँ हाँ
सीनियर को।
हाँ हाँ बराबर. ठीक है, कितना टाइम हुआ? ये कल कल वापस पढ़ेंगे पैराग्राफ को, बहुत लंबा चौड़ा पैराग्राफ है, क्योंकि इसमें
बहुत
हाँ
फिगर सर, इसमें मुझे लगता है कि बहुत ज्यादा हम लोगों को सोचने, मतलब पहले पैराग्राफ में भी ये उसका पक्ष रख रहा है, तो वो हमारे एनालिसिस का उतना बड़ा हिस्सा नहीं है, जरूरी हिस्सा नहीं है कि उसमें हम लोग बार बार
नहीं, बार बार नहीं, क्या है कि सी, if you don't put it into your head, you will, all communist Marxists, they are all talking about profit. All this aspect is being missed out. We are not in a factory, we take the accounts that the company has provided to us as to be true. That is what is happening. How do we analyze the company's balance sheet in a different manner? क्या सुरजीत?
नहीं
नहीं, कोई नहीं करता है।
मेरा कंफ्यूजन बहुत था, और मेरे दोस्तों का भी, जिनसे भी मैंने बात करने की कोशिश की, इट वाज अ कंफ्यूजन दैट दे एक्चुअली कंफ्यूज surplus value with profit.
हाँ
This is not the case that I understood now. Surplus value is different from profit, and you have to understand.
हाँ हाँ,
Again,
surplus is not profit. Profit is because what he is trying to explain is the method of calculation is incorrect. That is what is more important. And if he is reproducing that is what he has argued. So let us see tomorrow what happens. We will again read it. I think we should read it once more. और आज ही और एक बार पढ़ के
कल पढ़ते हैं तो फ्रेश उससे, और फिर थोड़ा पढ़ के भी रखूंगा मैं दिन में।
हाँ
और
हाँ
आज भी
हाँ, इसके अंदर का जो पॉइंट्स है उसको अंडरलाइन करो। तो वो कन्वर्शंस जो है ना, ये कन्वर्शंस बहुत, देखो मैथमेटिक्स में कोई जाने की इच्छा नहीं करता, बाकी आइडियोलॉजिकल बहुत बातें करेंगे, पर गणित आता है तब सब स्क्वायरली फ्लैट हो जाते हैं। और वो जो गणित का भाग है वो हमने हमारे चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट के लिए बाजू में करके रखा, उससे हमारा कोई लेना देना नहीं, उसको इकोनॉमिक्स समझता नहीं, और इकोनॉमिक्स को वो बैलेंस शीट समझता नहीं, ये प्रॉब्लम है। So either ways, the workers are at a loss. A clear idea is not being given to the workers as to what is going on when the production process is running. This is what is explaining, elucidating to a very great extent, and describing at the same time. So tomorrow we will read it again, huh? And
Yeah.
we will discuss it. Whatever is necessary, we will surely discuss. ठीक है? और tomorrow we will read it part by part because it is a very long paragraph. 1 minute, I'll just stop the record.